Hey everyone, it is your host Damien here from Hybrid Heroes, and this is the HYROX Heroes podcast, where we talk everything that you need to know when it comes to getting ready for your next HYROX race. Excited to have you here, and let's get into the episode. It has just been over a week since HYROX Brisbane has come and gone here in Australia, and it was one of the biggest HYROX events we have seen to date. It stretched over 5 days of racing. There was so much that was happening in and around the racing as well. And on today's podcast, I am going to share my experiences. I'm going to break down what we saw, what happened, and there is actually too much to share and talk about. So today it's just going to be a summary, going over all the fun things and amazing things that we saw and witnessed. But also what I'm going to talk about is the weekend, and always at a HYROX weekend, there is always lessons that we learn. We always had a bunch of clients race. I raced myself, and this sport, I feel like, is always teaching us something that we learn with the people at the top, something that we learn and continue to learn and understand about first timers and people chasing PBs. So I'm really going to break through towards the end of this podcast as well, all of those key lessons and what you can take from that as well to apply to your training to improve your HYROX. So guys, let's dive into this and let's recap HYROX Brisbane 2026. So what we saw again was 5 days of racing. Now, for the first time, we had the APAC championships. Now, a lot of us are like, what is this APAC? What is the difference? And for a large amount of people, like we don't actually know what the difference was. We know that the APAC was open weights only. So, and then it went to a championship where people could qualify for that, which meant that a lot of the pro categories and the other categories all got pushed off the weekend. So originally it was going to be Thursday, Friday was the non-APAC championship. And then the weekend was going to be APAC championship. And then it opened up with an extra day on the Monday, which again just provided a lot more participation. And that's how I got my mixed doubles tickets, from that extra day. So what that meant is there were people competing on Thursday, and there were people competing on Monday, and it was a big week, and all the in between, obviously. So this was really the first time we've seen such a big week. And when HYROX first came to Australia, it was a 1 day event. My first one was Melbourne 2023, and it was just a 1 day event. And now it's awesome to see how the sport is, it's just growing and extending. And I was talking to the race director of HYROX, and she just got back from London, and that was 7 days of racing, which is crazy. So again, it shows that HYROX is going strong. It shows that participation is really high. And, these week, it's not just how'd you go on the weekend now, it's how'd you go during the week. And it's really becoming, just almost like a week-long holiday of HYROX, which I love, which I thought was cool. So even for myself, so my week actually kicked off on the Tuesday because I got invited down to talk on the HYROX 365 panel on Tuesday, which was at Total Fusion in Brisbane. And that was, by the way, one of the best gyms I've ever stepped foot in my life. They had multi-leveled, they had like koi fish in a pond, they had different towers. It was just incredible. It was absolutely insane. So it was hosted there. And HYROX 365, if you have no idea what it is basically like the education side of HYROX. So they offer programming for coaches, for gyms. They offer education, so you can do your fundamental course, you can do your level 1, so you can get educated on the anatomy and the energy systems and how to do HYROX, which is amazing. So Hybrid Heroes, we as a performance coach, I'm an affiliated performance coach with HYROX. Just been building that relationship, and I got to talk there on the panel where we got to talk to about 30 other coaches and business owners. And we really just got to have a discussion about what's working in our businesses, the direction of the sport as well. And I was trying to get the slide of all the exact stats, but basically this, this sport is just growing immensely. So I think it was like last year there was like 90 races worldwide. This year they're on track for 150 races worldwide, and then it's going to grow again next year. So like participation, the amount of training clubs, where this sport is going, for anyone who's involved in the sport or racing or anything like that, HYROX is here to stay for quite a while, which is really encouraging because, as we want to progress, we know that the sport is also progressing, and, they've got ambitions to get to the Brisbane Olympics in 2032, which is not far away. So that's how HYROX week kicked off for myself. And then from that, on the Wednesday, we had the shakeout run. Now, I'm also on the community athlete team with LSKD. So if you don't know who LSKD is, I'll have the links below to their sites, and they're an activewear brand in Australia that are just absolutely blown up here and blowing up worldwide. They're just like running gear, training gear, now lifestyle wear. It's just an incredible brand, an incredible fit. But more importantly, they are driven by some really key values. And, those key values are all over their clothing. For a lot of us, we know exactly how good LSKD are. And so what they are doing is they've been running at these HYROX events a 1% better hub. So one of their key values is be 1% better every day. And, so their better hub is literally a place where all the athletes, who do HYROX, just everyone can come and recover. They have some drinks, they have some food, and just a place to chill out. Now, we've seen this in Melbourne, we've seen this in Sydney, and generally they have a bit of merch, and it's just a cool place that you can get some like hair braiding and just cool fun things like that. But this year, this 1% better hub at Brisbane just went to a whole new level. It went to such a new level that it was just as exciting to be there for the weekend as it was to be at HYROX, which is insane. So what they did is right across from the venue at Brisbane Convention Centre is they had is the Brisbane Bullets HQ. So they got a basketball court, they got all their facilities where they recover, change rooms, gym, all the rest of it. And LSKD just took over the whole facility, and they just put on a 1% better hub like no other. And it was absolutely free all HYROX week for anyone to come through. You just have to scan your QR code and you get access to it. They had coffee going on. They had meals there. They had bean bags everywhere. They had a basketball ring where you could shoot some hoops. They had some other little games around the place. Dr. Hydrate was there. Oh, they had a full store setup of all their activewear and clothing, which actually helped so many people because not only do we all have addictions when it comes to buying activewear, but also a lot of people just needed like shorts, or they were thinking this, or needed to get the color. And I know my mixed doubles partner, she was like, oh, we're going to drive to one of the stores, but we're like, everything is just here. So it was really good. Everyone got some fresh fits. And I think it's so cool because when you're away and you get excited, and the fact that they had a full store there was incredible. They had custom printing. So they had all these like logos, and they had a press there, and you could design your own garments. It was just so cool. So they had that. They had TH7, which is a recovery brand, was there. They had all compression boots. They had the trigger guns. They had place to stretch. They had a room that was just dark, quiet room with beanbags, so you could just chill in it. They also, in the back room, they had just like big couches and tables where people could sit and eat. They had a little gym section, right? And like, I know myself, I did my warm-ups there for the whole weekend. I did 2 races. They had that. And then also for the LSKD athletes, so the store athletes or community athletes or any of their athletes, we had access to the hot and cold plunge tubs in the back there as well for a bit of extra recovery. Once again, it was absolutely insane. If you want to see more of that, you want to see actually what happened there, if you go to the Hybrid Heroes Instagram, I've got a 2-part video, part 1 and part 2, where I just go through and I do a full tour of the LSKD hub. But it was awesome. So that just made a place like where they'll open from 8 to 5 every day, and just people could hang out, in between races. Instead of just, sitting around the convention, they could go there. It became a meeting spot, where people could connect. Like, I know I was just telling everyone, let's just meet at the hub, and we're able to chill out and just enjoy good company. And just huge thank you to the whole team. I know Jason Daniel, the owner, put on an amazing display there, but all the people who work there on the weekend, they did big hours. They set the whole place up. They absolutely did a phenomenal job. So big shout out to everyone there. Now, what is also exciting, and I share this, is because they're going to be doing the same thing in Sydney, which is mega exciting. So I don't think it's going to be to the extent of having the basketball court, but they're going to have a full 1% better hub there as well. And it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, which is incredible. So if you were one of the people who went to that hub and you did scan the QR code, they also sent everyone the full, just media library. Now I'm talking images and videos of the whole weekend, which is insane, absolutely insane. So if you got a hybrid brand or a HYROX brand, you want some content, they just delivered it all, which is absolutely incredible. So it just really shows how much they're just investing in giving back to the community. So guys, go check out LSKD if you haven't. I always love to support brands that support us. But they're also incredible activewear, which is another huge bonus as well. So the links are going to be down in the description. I've even got a discount code there that can get you 15% off it all as well. So go use that, go get yourself some gear, and let's support those guys. This is like the second point of 10 points that I got to get through. So I'll keep blasting through it. But guys, this was my first weekend as well, where I had 2 races. So I did my men's pro solo on Friday, and then I had a mixed doubles on Monday. So just to share some of my results, I got a 113 in men's pro, and ended up doing a 103 in our mixed doubles. So the men's pro, and again, if you race that weekend, I'd love to know, because we had a lot of athletes, clients, and just friends, and that everyone seemed to go a little bit slower at Brisbane, and I can't really figure out why. The course was good. The sleds, some of the sleds, were a little tough, some weren't, but nothing out of the usual. And I got a 113. I felt like I raced so much better, but I was a bit slower than Melbourne, where I did a 111. So it was really interesting to see that difference. In our mixed doubles race, me and my partner D, we absolutely we were so ready for that race, and we've been training so hard. And she's in Melbourne, I'm in Queensland, and we've been doing some Saturday workouts together. We do the same workout. And I think the race day, and I want to share this because she did an incredible job. So basically on the third run, she blacked out. She was going to stop, and she can't actually remember the race much from the third run on, she said. And somehow she just got through it. We slowed the pace down. We set off really fast, really quick. We wanted to be in the first, 6 or so lanes, and we achieved that at the start, and we're going to settle into the race. But before we could really do that, her body just said no. And it was very unusual from D at that point as well. But, something that we can kind of, look at, and the only thing we can pinpoint it. And I want to share this because it's so many of us do the same thing. It's, she was very nervous and very excited for the race. And I kept just going, we're going to kill it. We're going to smash it. And I think, you maybe can relate when you have a partner that's just G'ing it up so much. And then we were in the fast wave, and then we knew all these elites that were going to be in there, and we're this is going to be awesome. And she was getting a little bit worried and stressed, and to the point where, I don't think she had a big breakfast. She didn't have much to eat the night before too. So fueling became an issue. And to the point where, the pace was really, really fast. And, she almost blacked out. She needed every lap. She was saying, I'm going to stop. So I just give her just such huge credit, because not only did she just keep going, then she had a massive pain in her rib. But we still did a 103, which was incredible. She got back onto the pace. She just pushed through. Our strategy needed to change. And there was a lot of lessons that we took from this. So I share this because it's, you might be similar, where, sometimes the nerves and the stress and all this can get to you, and it might have affected your race as well. And or just even sometimes, and I'm the same as well when it comes to race day. I don't want to eat as much. I don't want to do these things, but because I'm nervous and I'm excited. But we really have seen, and we know when we look at a lot of athletes, that sometimes we just have to get food in no matter what. But with Dee as well, she went to the medical tent afterwards, and yeah, they put all the sort of electrodes on her, and they just ran her test. And yeah, she wasn't in great condition, heart rate very elevated. So, like Dee, again, I don't know how you got through it. I don't know how you got through it, but she was an absolute legend. So, but what we can take from it as well, and I share this again because it's like, that's how HYROX goes sometimes. We put in all this time and effort, just like you might have done the same. And sometimes it just doesn't go the way you want to go. But it's not about what happens at the race, it's about what you do next. And, Dee, again, she was, just like anyone would be. She was very, heartbroken. She felt like she let, us down, which I had to remind her that she absolutely didn't. And, we still did a great time. We did a very great time. A lot of people were like, geez, 103 is really good. We probably had like, a 59 in us, 59 something. But, just like a lot of people can get disappointed from the weekends, but it's like now we just need to go back to work. We just need to prepare again. We just need to learn. Like, it's just lessons that we can learn to make us stronger. So I think I've done now like 11 or 12 HYROXs now. And, every single one of them has come with a key lesson. So I really hope that you had a good weekend. But if you were someone that, something didn't go your way, it happens to us. It happens to us all. Just even like my pro race, like I went slower. Like like I felt so much better, and the time was slower. But when I look at my age group ranking, went from 39 22nd. I did a lot better overall from like a competitive point of view on the day. But all we can do is we can just analyze, we can see the positives, and but also understand this is still a sport, and every single race, every single track, every single course, I should say, it's just not identical. It's not the same. So we really just have to race the conditions on the day. And that was also something massively that I saw over the weekend is just like we had a couple of things that didn't go our way. Like I was aiming for like a 108 in my pro solo, and we are aiming for sub 60, but we accepted it, and but a lot of people did very similar. Like it was so when I say a few, like a lot of people did similar, like I'm talking like hundreds of people did similar, where a lot of conversations I was having, people weren't getting the time they wanted, they were slower. And so for me, this is just like data, like, okay, well, the course is slower. Something about this seemed to slow people down. But just people were just like really disheartened. They thought, it was just a reflection on them, and they're not making progress. And where the reality is, it's like, again, the courses, the conditions on the day can just be so different. And what I was doing, and if you haven't done this, and if you race there, and if you haven't done this, or even doesn't matter where you race in the world, is time is one measuring, is one measurement, that we can track progress. Obviously, if you run faster, you're like, I made progress. But also, again, if the course is different, but look to your rankings. So, if you look to all your stations, if you look to your overall, it's like, did you progress? Did you get a better ranking? Did your ranking in each of the stations improve? And why this can be so important and a really great way to track if you did make some great progress is because everyone had to race with the same stuff on the same day. So like if you came like, call it 1,000, you were like 100th position in your last race, and now here you ran a slower time, but you're 50th. It's like, what was better? You know what I mean? Like, did you have a better race because everyone had to race the conditions, which means you've actually made more improvement? Or do you go, I'm slower because my time was slower? So again, it's a very key observation, I think, that a lot of us can look at, because I know a lot of people who made significant progress, in their training, and on the race day, the time didn't show it, but we saw it in all of the overall rankings. And there's always a discrepancy there too as well, because some events there's more athletes than the rest. But when we can look at like, you know, major like Brisbane, so like if you compare like a Melbourne to Brisbane, they're pretty comparable because they're big events. If you compare like Melbourne to like an Auckland or something like that, you know there's just different competition, different crowds. So yeah, just stuff to reflect on. So I really wanted to share, you know, my race results, experience. But you know, other than that, and that was also another thing just to finish off there is, you know, my training leading up to this one, I don't think was ever as good as it's ever been. Like I've been doing more running, been following the program so consistently. You know, moved to Queensland over the last 6 months. So I've just been dialed in, and I felt like so much better. Like I felt like I pushed harder. I was more consistent, more controlled. I just felt like I had a better race. So even when I saw the time, I was just like, I was not upset because I'm just like, A, that was as hard as I could have gone. B, I executed exactly how I wanted to. And I could feel that progress. I could just feel the you know, just the way from even like Melbourne, I felt like I was hanging on for dear life. Where this one, it wasn't like that. So again, always take those positives. And even for me now, like my goal this year is Melbourne, like end of the year in December. So, you know, we're here now, you know, in April. And even though I didn't get the time improvement, but it's like, okay, I got the, you know, in the last like really like, you know, 12 or 14 weeks, geez, that's how much better I feel. Now, take those lessons and let's just keep progressing that moving forward. And I'm going to talk about some of those key lessons as well a bit later. All right, let's go into a couple other points. All right, I'm going to skim over this bit. I'm not going to dive too deep into it. But what we also saw in Brisbane weekend is we saw the Elite 15 racing, which was awesome. So it was incredible because it was in the evening for the athletes. I know they had to race really late. I know the guys were on at like even like 9 o'clock, but it was good from a spectator point of view because we could sort of wrap up the day, chill out, head over, watch the race, which was really, really exciting. We had Gab, you know, she came second in her solo. She came second in her doubles. It's just so awesome to see her just right at the top end of this sport, and she is only getting better as well. And so are these other girls. Very notable was Calypso. I haven't seen her race in person, but I was very impressed by her. So just huge shout out there as well. And the guys as well. The guys were fierce, and it was so good to see as well in this APAC championship. So because it was, you know, restricted to people of the region, we saw a lot more of the like the locals and all in there as well. So it was so awesome to see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people who've been doing amazing here in Australia in sport, and they were all in the Elite 15 as well. So well deserved, and you know, really like the guys at the front were just miles ahead, but sort of from that third, I believe, to like 10th position, they were all very bunched up. So it was some very exciting racing, which was really cool to see. And it's exciting now because as that Elite 15 space opens up to like a second division or Division 1 as they're going to call it, so basically there's going to be like the top 30. So I think it's awesome because it's just going to give you know, some really amazing athletes, you know, a chance to race at that really top level of competition, which is really awesome. So really awesome to see. So, you know, one thing from the weekend, and it's always, you know, I always absorb the whole weekend, and then someone who's been in the sport for a while and seeing it grow, like this sport is always changing. And one thing that is very noticeable as well is just the athletes, the quality of athletes, you know, just constantly changing too. You know, like when I remember one of the very first posts Hybrid Heroes did that blew us up as a brand was, you know, the 1K run times at HYROX. And I put some averages there of the times that HYROXs were doing. And, you know, the elite times were like under 4 minutes 30, you know, like compromised running. And, you know, these guys are now running like sub 3, you know, on some laps. Like it's insane, like insane. And you know, that's from the top of the sport, but even just like the, you know, like I'm just gonna call them like intermediates, like everyone is just getting better at running. Like it's so obviously we're doing the sport a lot longer, but it's so awesome to see that, you know, people are training better. You know, they're doing more run volume. They're understanding the sport more. And the one thing that we have to understand with this sport, and that's why it's like it's kind of always changing. And when you look to I guess the people towards the top, you know, you can always, you know, they're always consistent. They're always there, so you can always see the progress that they make. But I guess like one thing that happens with this sport is, we get really good at running because we're like, we got to run more, more, more. And then we're like, oh, now I'm not strong enough. Then we do a little bit more strength work. And then we're like, oh, okay, now I'm stronger. Now I need to do a little bit more running. And that is one thing that I think is just always going to be a case. It's trying to find that balance between the two, strength, being strong enough, but then being fast enough, because what we're seeing too is we're seeing a lot of athletes, again, they're getting faster, they're getting much better at running, but they are getting weaker. Like they are getting weaker. And obviously the running is the part that's going to make the most difference when it comes to performance and time. But now when you're starting to get to the top level where these strong athletes can run just as fast as well, it all matters. It really does. So which is really showing as well, like back in 23 when I started, like and that's how Hybrid Heroes even started blowing up, is we were one of the first sort of real brands, real coaches, to really like just jump on the HYROX trend. And we just got in front of it early. And I started programming and working with clients in this space, and there wasn't too many coaches that were really bought into it yet. And but now there are just so many, obviously, coaches and gyms and facilities and experts. And what I'm loving to see is we're seeing experts from like the endurance round, from triathlons, from marathon training, really now start to see HYROX as a legitimate sport. And I just believe people are just training better. Like there's better programming out there. There's more people working with coaches, which is really awesome to see. So one thing from that as well is also what is kind of also clear to see is you can sort of see the people who aren't, which is another sort of problem, because again, at the start we were just running, we were doing strength training, and we're hybrid. But now we have to be a lot smarter. We have to be a lot more specific. And, this was another huge point that I took from it. So even over the last 12 months, all these coaches, all these places, it's like, they have a program. In Hybrid Heroes, we supply programs. Links are down below in the description on our app. But one thing I've always been very, prideful of is coming from a personal training background is, I've done high level programming for people, for clients one-on-one for many, many years. So I really try to put that, effort into our programs and designs, but there's only so much you can do in a one-to-many program. So we have 3 different versions for different levels. Beginner, 6 session a week. Then we got like 8 session a week. So for high levels. But one thing that we are now seeing is, the need for individualization. So, as a coach and as a coach that works with clients one-on-one, and I've done so for a very long time, like that is always the pinnacle. Like an individual program and design for you is absolute must. But now we're seeing, I can see it in people that this is now the next phase where almost just these general programs or these one-to-many programs, they're just not working anymore. And this is a problem that even I'm faced with Hybrid Heroes. And we have just launched our new update. So we've done a 2.0, so a program for people who have done the first block of this year. And I'm making revisions to our first one. And what I'm now doing, like what I do with my one-on-one clients, is I'm putting now very specific markers in there, like we're testing aerobic threshold, anaerobic threshold, so we can work out heart rate zones so that we can then prescribe what intensity you should be going at. Because again, this is the big problem. This is why individualization and these programs are going to be the next big thing for people to advance, is because people are just doing more. They're just doing more everything, more running, more strength training, more volume, more capacity, and even at more intensity. And it's leading straight to burnout. It's leading to fatigue. It's leading to poor performance. It's leading to, like mental health issues, because, when you're feeling all this way, again, it's just hard to get through it. It's very stressful. It's leading to injuries. And then it's leading to, people potentially exiting the sport. Or, I've even worked with some of these people before, they get injured, they just pull back a little bit, and then they just go straight back to the same routine that they did before that got them injured. And then the cycle just continues. And that can be really discouraging. And this is, again, what I see as a coach and as someone who's like, when I say I work with people one-on-one, like 18 years I've been working with people one-on-one. And, all the things that we have to take into account is like lifestyle, training availability, all the other things that you have in your life, like work stress, family stress, how your sleep is, your food, your nutrition, mindset, mental health, like all these things need to be factored into a program. And, this is something that now we're including in our Hybrid Heroes program with all the programs moving forward and revisions to all our 2026 ones, is we're going to try add in as much of this as possible. Now, on a one-to-many program, so it's a lower ticketed price, now that responsibility is the athlete's responsibility. It's like you need to learn to manage yourself, but we give you all the tools to do so. But even now, like, we're working Hybrid Heroes. We are now doing one-on-one coaching as well. So before it was just more, I just worked with people that came to me and I knew, and I wasn't offering that. But Hybrid Heroes, we now have spots available for one-on-one coaching. So if you're someone who's like, I need something tailored for me because I'm running into all of these problems that you just said above, and I don't know what to do. And if you want to work with a coach who can help you every single week, make those adjustments and really create a program for you, I got a link below. It's got more information about what one-on-one programming is. And then from there, you book in a call with me and then we go over it together. So again, it's a very high touch point service. It's not for everyone, but it is for those people who either have a massive goal, like they want to get to really high levels of performance. You have to be tailored at that point. Or for people who just their current approach now is just not working. It's either you're not getting results, you're plateauing, or it just doesn't feel right. So if that's the case, reach out, let's have a chat. Or if you're someone who's like, no, I feel like I'm pretty self-sufficient. I feel like I just need some more guidance, some more education. And, I just want a smarter program, then jump on our Hybrid Heroes app. All the links are down below in the description. You get a 7-day trial there. You can download, you can get our access to our programs, and you still get access with me as well. So I can still answer all your questions and help you along the way, which is incredible too. So if you need a program, if you need some structure, if you've just been winging it and doing random stuff, stop doing that. Okay, stop doing that, because again, this is how you're gonna get left behind the rest of this year, and especially as the years go on. So let's get some smarter programming there for you. And again, just going back to the original point, it's, again, we're seeing a lot of great coaches out there as well doing that, and we're just seeing those people excel, which is amazing. So in saying that, here in Australia too, like our next big event is HYROX Sydney. So again, if you're gearing up for HYROX Sydney, or wherever you are in the world, our programs are in like 12-week blocks. And 12 weeks, regardless of our programs, anyone's program, 12 weeks is always like the common sort of length. And 12 weeks is a good amount of time because it's when the body can actually create the maximum amount of adaptation with a structure. So after 12 weeks, it can be a little longer, but generally the program needs to be updated, designed. The body gets like a diminishing return of adaptation if it keeps doing the same thing over and over. So 12 weeks typically is a really great time. And typically as well, if you're leading into a HYROX race, what we are doing is we are intensifying. So we call this an intensification phase. So if you're like 6 months out or 8 or 9 months out from your race, we call this accumulation phase. So it's a phase where you're just, you're building sustainable fitness. But coming into a race time, it's about intensification. So you could think if you're intensifying things, and really if it goes beyond 12 weeks, which is 3 months, which is a long time really to be intensifying things, this is again where people can just be training too hard for too long, and then it's not sustainable. So we're about I think we're about just over 10 weeks, or just under 11 from Sydney. So again, now's the time. If you haven't got a program, if you're like, I'll just wait a few more weeks, or you haven't thought about it, stop waiting. Go to the link, get started with us. Let's get some structure and let's get you training for Sydney and wherever you are in the world. If you've got a race coming up, I would love to help you and work with you, which is awesome. So, guys, I feel like I've covered quite a lot about the HYROX Brisbane weekend. Once again, it was awesome. It was huge. And what this now says is we're gearing up for a massive Sydney, and we're gearing up for an even bigger for those people. And I'm getting a few inquiries now, which is awesome. And if you're someone who's like Melbourne, Melbourne, I don't know why it seems to be like the peak race. It's probably the largest race here in Australia. It's also a world major. And, I really encourage everyone to kind of, have one race to really work towards. I don't believe you need to peak in every single race. Like even some people that went really hard in Brisbane, even a couple, we're less than 2 weeks out and people are trying to get back to training right away and our bodies just aren't recovered, So to say that we're going to be absolutely peaking for Sydney, it's kind of like it's a big ask. Doesn't mean you're not going to improve. Doesn't mean you're not going to make progress. We should always be making progress. But if you are someone who's like really wanting to get ready for Melbourne, I really encourage you just keep focused on that. Don't get too caught up in Sydney. I think Sydney is a must because you want to be there because you want race experience. You want to see that progress in your training. You want another weekend where you're getting ready, where you're getting nervous before your race, where you're eating, you're doing all those sorts of things, and then that can just make you better again. You want to make some mistakes, you want to learn from it and just keep moving forward. So same deal wherever you are in the world, just look at your timeline and, you should always, I always like to say that one event of the year is like the one I'm really going to peak at. And then everything else in between is just making progress along the way. So that could be something that's very similar for you as well. So again, if that is the case, just keep being consistent, right? As I always say, keep being repeatable. Make sure you're there at Sydney, join in on the fun. And yeah, it's awesome. So guys, thank you for listening today. That's a bit of a recap show. We'll see you on the next episode, and I'll see everyone very soon, no doubt, at HYROX Sydney.